Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So behind me is a 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, and we're going to be replacing the rear pads and rotors on it. Now before we go ahead and begin, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. It definitely helps the channel grow. Smash that like button because it helps out a lot. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started on the rear pads and rotors. So I have you guys zoomed into the rear wheel. Before we take off this wheel, I wanted to mention this. Now, I'm sure all of you know how to take off your tire off your car. I'm not going to show you guys removing the wheel and tire. But what I am going to show you is before you can get to your lug nuts or lug studs, whatever you prefer to call this style, you have these caps. And if you notice, these caps have no real area on where to grab them. And a lot of people wonder how to get them off. Now, my whole thing on this, guys, is I'm sure there's some fancy tool out there for these. However, this is my fancy tool. It's about as fancy as they get. It's a snap-on pick. Now, this particular snap-on pick is a 90-degree tool, as you see. And what I like to do is go ahead and put this in there and go ahead and pull out. I'm going to go ahead and do one here now, and you guys can see they come off just like that. Now, sometimes they do come off pretty hard, and they will launch across the shop. So just be mindful of that. You know, sometimes you can control it with two hands like that, but you guys can see you can easily lose them. So I typically stay back and just go ahead and pull on them. They're gonna land on the floor. Sometimes they'll get stuck on the pick. Either way, just go ahead and take those off. Now that those are off, you guys can see we have our 17mm lug nut studs that we have there. Now we're going to go ahead and take those off. The next clip, I'm going to have the wheel off just to save time on the video, guys. If you guys don't know how to remove a wheel and tire from a car, I have a separate video on that, but it's pretty straightforward. So I have you guys positioned at the rear rotor. Our wheel and tire are off. First thing that I like to do is there's a T30 holding on your rotor. It's located right here. I'd like to take my stubby Milwaukee with a T30 bit and get this off. Now sometimes these can be a challenge and a bear to get off. They don't come off that easy. They do make certain impact tools. You could also use a chisel, but you wind up destroying the actual screw if you plan on reusing it, which it's not necessary. What that does is it holds the rotor in place, and the whole thing about it is that manufacturers say it's when the cars are made on the production line so the rotors don't fall off and hit someone on the head. I don't know if that's true or not. On these, I do say it's necessary. I prefer to put it back in because if you notice, you guys don't have any studs here to hold the wheel up. And if this rotor isn't secured on here, it'll move on the hub and these wheel bolts will kind of flutter all over the place. And then you're going to have to come in here and adjust where your rotor is before you even put your wheel on, and it can be a nuisance. So it makes life a little easier taking your tire on and off if you have that screw on there because the rotor is not going to float on the hub. So now I have you guys on the other side. Next step is we're going to be removing the spring right here. I take a small pry bar or a small flathead, whatever you have. You want to hold it here as you pull it out. Sometimes these can wind up hitting you in the face or flying across the shop. So you want to be careful. And then you want to just go ahead and take it off. All this is a spring clip. It actually holds pressure on the caliper downward. So that way when you apply the brakes, it doesn't lift up this way. Now that we have that out of the way, you can go ahead and chuck that in the trash because depending on what brakes you bought, you may have them already available to you. If your brake pads are a cheaper variety, they don't come with them, so it all varies. But you know, definitely try to get a good set of pads that come with new hardware because that's about the only piece of hardware that these cars have as far as the rear brakes go. So before we go any further on this vehicle, guys, just right after you remove those little caps off your caliper pins for the rear, I'm going to give you guys an example of the tools we're going to use because you'll see, and I'll show you on the next clip, that you're going to need two separate tools because one of them will fight you. Now, the first thing that you're going to need is a 7mm Allen, a short style. I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but it's that one right there. And then you're going to need a long Allen, 7mm as well. This particular one is going to have a ball end. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It's like a ball on the end. What this allows you to do is come in at all varying angles and still be able to contact you know, the bolt or the pin in there. The reason why is the top bolt is basically blocked by the brake line or the brake hose, and you can't get the short one in there and get a ratchet on it. So you're going to need to come in at an angle, and these straight cut ones, if you guys will notice the differences, straight cut versus ball cut, this allows you to get in there and maneuver. Now I have you guys positioned somewhat forward of the caliper, and the reason why is I want to show you guys how to remove these brake pins. This doesn't use a traditional bolt or anything. Now what I'm going to do is remove this little dust cover that they have on there. I use my pocket knife, just kind of peel back on it just like that, and you can take it off. It's just a little cap protecting any water or anything going in there. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to this top one right here. Just want something thin and flat, and go ahead and take off the boot, or the cap I should say, that is on the boot. This is the best angle that I could get you guys in. Now I'm gonna hover a little bit and show you the top pin right here. As you guys will see, the fluid line gets in the way. There's no way you're gonna be able to get a socket in there. Just to show you guys the best example, the short socket, which is the one that I commonly use, which is this one, if you try to put it in there, you will find that even if you could get it to go in there, it basically gets stopped because the brake line is in the way. So it's not going to work. Now, a lot of you may assume, hey, Mike, put an extension on there, but that's not going to work either, because look, guys, it's in the direct path. You're not going to be able to get any extension or anything in there. So we have to think outside the box here. I don't know what Volkswagen was thinking when they made this design. They could just tweak this hose so it lifts up a little bit more and you wouldn't have this issue. But either way, we got the right tools, so we're not too worried about it. That's where our long one comes in. Now, I showed you guys both of these, the short and the long, and the ball style versus the flat style in the previous clip. What you're going to want to do with this one and how this works, and I'll show you, is you can actually come in here at an angle, and this will contact in there, and you will also see that not only does it go in there and make contact, but look, you can angle it out and you can fit a ratchet on there. And I know right now it looks like it's very limited. Let me switch the camera in my hands here, but you can see you can actually lift this thing up and angle it, and if I go in from this side, I can actually angle it out that way. That's why you're gonna need this ball style. Think of the ball style cut Allens as a universal joint style, because what they allow you to do is get flexible with it. And the reason why you can't use this one for the bottom, because a lot of you may say, hey, I have a ball one, it's long, I don't need to get a short one. No, you need a short one, because look, it's too long. It hits this control arm there. So you're going to need both of these to be able to do this portion. Where I begin is we're going to take our short one, and I have it coupled up to a 3/8 gear wrench, guys. And we're just going to ratchet this off. These are semi-long, I guess, but you should be able to just get them off with a ratchet. You could fit a electric ratchet in there if you'd like. However, you know, I just use a manual style. I don't know, it works for me. Once the pin kind of comes out, you'll see here all the threads are exposed. What I like to do is come in here with something flat. I just use my pocket knife and I just push back on it, and that'll tell me if it's actually come off, because these pins generally don't like to come out of the hole. Now, we will take them off and clean them, and I'll share some info on them, because a lot of people always do something wrong when it comes to that regard. Now it's time to do our top pin. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take my long reach one here, and I'm sorry guys, because the camera angle is not the best here. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and insert it in there, and it is up there. I don't know how well you guys can see. Let me see what you guys are looking at. All right, so you guys can see we're right there. Now on this side, which is going to be the passenger side, you are going to need the ratchet with a, I guess you can say a flex head, 3/8, or I'm sorry, a swivel. That's the word I'm looking for. Simply because what happens is our fuel line filler is right here, guys, and that's the room that you would normally need to put the ratchet in there. So I find that this will angle downward there, and now I'm gonna go underneath. Let's see if I can do this without dropping everything. But the way this will work is you take your flex, and this can be the challenging part, just getting it to line up in the square drive. These are spring loaded. Sometimes they want to fight you. So now that we are in there, what we're going to do is set our ratchet into the off position and go ahead and break this loose. Now, it can be a little bit of a struggle because we are doing this from a weird angle, but you guys can see there, it is coming off. It's a little difficult, but you know, we're able to do it. This is probably the worst part of this design. because you gotta have a good way to get in there. Now, if you don't want to go out and buy tools like I have, you can always just buy a regular L-shaped Allen wrench, maybe cut it down and put it on a pair of vice grips, and then you'll be able to do it that way. But as you guys can see, we got ours all the way off, so that's always a good thing right there. And same technique, grab my knife, go ahead and push it in, just to kind of get the threads out of there, because the bushings help keep these in there. They don't really come out that easy. Now, most people would take a screwdriver, try to push and compress that caliper piston. Don't do that. These are electronic rear brakes. So if you wind up trying to force this back, you will break it. All you have to do at this stage is just take them off by using another pry bar tool here. I'm just using my pry bar, and I take my time. I know these can be stubborn, but they come off, as you'll see here. See if I can, so this pin is stuck on there. You just push it back. You saw that. That's what winds up happening. That's why you always want to push those pins all the way back. And then be careful, that pad wants to always fall off and kill you. And now we got our caliper off to the side. Now there's no need for you guys to try to hang this. It stays pretty nicely here. Just make sure there's no tension on the wire or on the brake line. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and take off our brake pads. Now one of them fell off. I'm going to show you guys some differences so you guys are mindful when you're reinstalling this. Welcome back up top, guys. So we have our brake pads here. Now the inner pad fell off. You guys saw it in the last clip. I put it back on there just for demonstration purposes. You will notice that the outside pad and inside pad are different. If you go ahead and take off your inside pad, which, wow, this thing came off really easy just a second ago. It fell off when I removed the caliper, and now she's fighting me. So anyway, this is the inside caliper. This inside caliper will have the spring up here. That's the best way to remember it. And you guys can see this brake pad is worn down. It's pretty much almost metal to metal there. So your inboard pad is this one. Sometimes a little tip that'll help you guys out if you guys don't remember is to go ahead and just look at the back of the brake pad, and you will see that that is where the caliper piston resides. And that'll kind of give you the info that this was the inboard pad in case you don't look at it or you forget. And the outside one, you just take that off the same way, and you will notice that this one doesn't have that. And the dead giveaway on these guys, if you guys ever run into this issue, is you can always tell which pad went where. If you're replacing brake pads and your pads don't look the same and you're unsure, this will be the clear indication. You can see the piston here looks exactly like this piston surface, and then those two little fangs there are exactly these guys right here on our caliper as well. So that's a little trick that you can use if you're not too sure. Now that we got that off, I'm going to show you guys, and I'm going to explain this, because most people at this point, and I'll zoom you guys out, would have to remove this bracket. Now, here's the thing. You don't on some Volkswagen models. And I'm going to show you guys a quick little trick here. Let me get the camera set up, and I'll show you guys how I get the rotor off without even touching my bracket bolts. And we don't have to loosen or take that off for this installation. So previously I took off my retainer bolt or holding bolt. Now what I'm going to do, guys, is take my hammer and I'm going to go ahead and hit my rotor off. Now if I was saving the rotor, hit this facial area here. In this case, this rotor is junk. We're going to be throwing it in the trash or recycle bin. So make sure that you just go free willy on it. You can hit it right here. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a couple taps. Now, I lost my light in the process just because of all those vibrations. So let me get my light back up here. And now we are looking all golden. So here's how we get off this rotor. And I'm going to zoom you guys a little bit this way and show you this. Once you break it free and it's loose, all you really have to do on these is do one of these and your rotor just comes off. And you guys can see right here, our bracket is bolted up. No, we did not loosen it or anything. I absolutely love it when one of these comes in the shop and it's like this. Now, not every German car is like this, but this particular car is. Depending on what you're working on, you may have this option for the rear brakes, is what I find usually, or you may not. So, that's a little trick, and that's why I love doing these rear brakes. Now, to be honest with you, this kind of evens out, because even though the rotor is easy, you don't got to remove the bracket. they make that rear bolt on the caliper pin one heck of a good time to get off. So now that we got this rotor off, next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and prep the surface. So let me go ahead and get my tool and I'll show you guys how I do that. So to clean up our hub surface, guys, we are going to need our angle die grinder, and I use what I call the oatmeal cookie. It's basically a surface prep pad. This one's pretty worn down. It's about time to replace it, but figure have one more use on it. And what we're going to do is just take this, and I'll show you guys a quick thing here, because this can be kind of loud. I'm going to clean it actually off camera, but I'll show you guys how I do it. Just like that. Now you're not looking to get this all polished and really pretty. Get the rust off, level it off, make sure there's no chunks of rust or anything on there, and that's the type of cleaning that you're going to be going for on this. If you want to go ahead and polish it and you got all day and you can sand it down and do all that, go ahead, but all you really need is a nice level surface free of rust and debris, and I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. Now that we got our hub surface cleaned and prepped, guys, what we're going to be doing is cleaning off our bracket. Now, if you guys have a sandblasting cabinet or something that can clean off these areas, that would be the best way to do it. However, here in the shop, we don't really have a way of doing it that way. We don't have a sandblaster. So what I use is just a wire brush. Now, typically, if the bracket was off the car, you just kind of wedge it and hold it in your hand or vise it and clean them off. In this scenario, the car is holding it for us because we didn't have to take it off. So I'm going to get in here and just start scrubbing away. Obviously, I have to move my caliper out of the way here to get a nice throw. So I'm going to clean off the top and the bottom, primarily where the pad resides in there. You want to clean up really good. If you have to come in here with a file or something to clean it up, I also do have a drill with a wire brush attachment that cleans these up really well. So just go ahead and get that taken care of, guys, and then I'll show you the next step. Now that we cleaned up our bracket, it is time to work on our caliper here. We need to retract this piston. Now, this vehicle has an electronic parking brake. These can be a little bit of a difficult thing. Some cars require you plugging it into a scan tool to retract these, and then you'll be able to push it in. However, this particular model, depends on the level. This one's more of a base model Volkswagen Tiguan. So this particular one, all you have to do is spin these back into place. You don't need a scan tool to do so. Now, one thing that I want to show you guys on the pins here that a lot of people seem to get really wrong, and I want to address it a little bit once I get this top pin off here. Now, I am holding both of my caliper pins in my hand. You guys will see these are a little dirty, but nothing real major. A lot of people take these off and they don't clean them, and then what they do that's actually a little bit worse is they'll sit there and lubricate them. These do not need to be lubricated. You can see this these rear brakes were factory brakes that we took off. No lube on here whatsoever from the factory. So what I like to do on these is I'll take my Scotch-Brite pad and I'll clean them up, and then I'll reinsert them into my caliper here. They slide right in. If you want to do just a very light coating of some silicone lube or something, but very light, you're not supposed to grease these up like you would conventional pins on a normal brake job. Now I'm going to go ahead and set those to the side, and I'm going to clean those up off camera now that I explained how we clean those. The next step, and let me see what the best camera angle is going to be. It's probably going to be right here, guys. These rear calipers, you're going to need a specialty tool to retract and spin that piston in. If you don't have it, I believe you can go ahead and rent it from a parts store. However, you're going to have to make a trip down there. Now I'm going to go get my tools and set this up, and I'll show you guys how we replace them here at the shop. Now, what we're going to be doing after we got our pins out of there is we need to service our caliper piston. This one is a retractable turnstile, and to give you guys the best representation here, you're going to need a tool like this. Now, this one's a fancy one. This one's pneumatic, so it's hooked up to air, and it does most of the pushing by itself. However, you can just get the regular turnstile ones and rent them from like an auto parts store, guys. You don't necessarily need this one. So the way this is going to work is this tool has an adapter. You guys can see this adapter. It comes off. I actually dropped it on the floor. That's what you guys just heard there in the clip. And these little teeth that are sticking out, they correspond right here on our caliper. You can see those cutouts. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get the tool set up there. I have you guys set up on a side view. Now we're going to be taking care of our piston here. I'm going to line up our tool. Those little tangs will go on there. And what I'm going to do is the tool will push on it as I turn it. And these are pretty easy if you got the right tool. Sometimes they do get caught up, guys, and you want to be mindful of that. Now this one surprisingly didn't really have that much to turn, which is weird. Maybe you just got to spin it a little when it goes in there, but you guys can see it is fully recessed and it actually is in the stop position. And the reason why I know that is if you look at these Volkswagens, when these little cutouts are lined up at 12 and 6 o'clock, it's pretty much all the way in. And you guys can see that thing is all the way in there. So now our piston is all retracted and taken care of. What I'm going to do is take some grease. This is the same grease that you would be using on your caliper pins if this one had it. And we are going to be applying some on the face of our piston. And we are also going to be applying some to our caliper here, these little tangs. Anywhere there's metal to metal touching, guys, you want to have some sort of grease. So the way I do this is grease them up just like that. Now that we've greased up our caliper, I did it off camera. I cleaned off our pins and I reinserted them. The way they come out is the way they go in. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, what I like to do is take a little bit of grease and we are going to grease up our bracket. Now, we previously cleaned up this bracket using a wire brush. I know it looks rusty on camera, but there's no high spots or any ridges. You guys will see these brake pads are going to slide on here. I know sometimes the camera, the way the angles are, makes stuff look differently, but you'll see here, guys. The wire brush is a good method to do on this if you don't have any other means to clean it. You know, just a lot of people always have something to say about, like, no, it doesn't work, you should sandblast it. But trust me, wire brushes work, and I'll show you here in a second. But now that we have everything greased up, we got our brake pad areas where we're going to be sliding it in already greased up and everything. We got our caliper greased up. It is time to reinstall the rotor. As you guys recalled earlier, we did not have to take the bracket off for the rotor. So the way we're going to install the new one is simply go ahead and take it just the way we took it off and just insert it in there. Now we are going to be lining up our little holder screw in here. Very important to reuse it on these, especially if you have it, because like I mentioned earlier, guys, if you don't, what'll happen here, you see that if this is not bolted on, sometimes it'll just free float. Now in this case, it has some oil on here that I gotta clean off. That's why it's holding on. But basically, this will happen when you go to put on your wheel, and you got to readjust your rotor to your spacing for your lug nuts, or lug studs in this case. And if you have the screw in there, I'll show you. We're going to go ahead and reinstall it, and you will see that it all rolls together, everything is lined up. So it's definitely a good thing to have that reinstalled. Now that we have that on there, what we're going to do is we are going to start installing our brake pads. So let me go ahead and grab my brake pads and I'll show you guys the next step. Now that our rotor is installed and everything here, you guys will notice our rotor surface is dirty. Typically, standardized brakes don't get the rotors as dirty. However, since the bracket didn't come off, you guys can see we got a little bit of grease and stuff on there. What I'm going to do is go ahead and spray down my rotor with brake cleaner and clean both sides. And then for the inside, I'm going to basically spray a blue shop towel and spray some brake cleaner back there and go ahead and wipe off the surface as I spin my rotor around to ensure I'm getting everything off. It's quite simple and easy. I just thought I'd share this with you because a lot of people may not know this. They'll put their brakes on with all this stuff on there, and then that could be just noise waiting to happen. So take your brake cleaner, clean off your areas. As you guys can see, brake cleaner makes really light work of this. If you got any areas where you have grease, just go ahead and rub it off. It's acetone based and everything will come off. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the inside off camera because I'm gonna have to do one of these when I'm back there and block it. So just be mindful of that, guys. Let me take a minute here, clean the backside, and we're gonna reinstall our pads. So now it's time to install our brake pads. We cleaned off our rotor surfaces, guys. Everything is beautiful. Now, one thing I want to show you, even though we use a wire brush and these brackets look dirty, and that's how these commonly look, what we're going to do is go ahead and take our pad and insert it on there, and look at how loose and how nice these pads roll on there. You want to have a pad that doesn't stick. If it's sticking or hanging up, what you're going to want to do is, clean it up some more. But this just goes to show even a wire brush can do a really good job for those of you that are skeptical. Make sure that your inboard pad is the one with the spring, because that's what goes on the inside, and then make sure the outside one does not have that. The next step in this is we're going to push our pins in, make sure they're flush with the boot for ease of installation of the caliper, and then we are simply going to line this up and push it up top. Now this clip here, guys, this little spring, you want to be mindful, make sure that the tabs are within the caliper and that they're not coming out, because that can present an issue if that's not the case. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this off camera, is I'm going to go ahead and tighten my lower pin and my upper pin. Remember, for the upper pin, you're going to need your special tool with your swivel head, because this is the only way to tighten it. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. It's the same exact procedure as loosening it. You guys saw me do it. It was pretty easy. So just go ahead and do the same thing in reverse order, and I'll be right back with you guys once I tighten and torque everything. Now that we got our pins tightened and torqued, guys, and this top one will fight you. I really hated the way they do it, but we got it done. Next step is make sure you take your boot covers or your little tops that we took off here earlier for your pins, and we are going to reinsert those and lock them in. Now that we have that done, there is one more final step as far as for the brake job. What we're going to have to do is install our new spring on the outside. Now, some brake pads come with this, some don't. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier or not. Usually a good set of brake pads, the premium ones, will come with the hardware, and we are using the premium ones. So the way I'm going to install this, and I'll get you guys zoomed in here pretty good, cover this, it's pretty simple. I start off with the top, and then I'm going to put my top hook in there, and then I'm going to install my bottom one on my caliper as I hold it, and then what I'm going to do is kind of pressure that one that way, and that's how easy these go on. They shouldn't fight you, but just be mindful. And because I'm lazy to get my hammer, what I do is I also tap here, make sure that they are fully in there. Once you have that in there, the brake job is pretty much complete. As you guys see right there, we got our new rotor installed, new pads, new hardware, everything is tightened and torqued, and it's a beautiful thing. Next thing that we're going to do is just reinstall the tire. I'm going to pump up the brakes before I drive it out, and then we're going to drive it, take it on a road test, and burnish the brakes and make sure they're wearing in properly. And that'll pretty much close it out with this one, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. So that's how you do rear pads and rotors on a 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, guys. Real easy. The caliper can be a little difficult to push it back in. That caliper pin will fight you, but hopefully that all makes up for the little tip that I showed with the rotor and not having to remove the caliper bracket, because those bolts are in an even weirder position. They're a little difficult to get to and take off. So I'm happy for that. We were able to save some time, even though we really didn't save time because we had to fight that upper pin. But either way, it's simple and quick. You guys saw me do it. If you follow these steps, it'll pretty much work on any Tiguan out there. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm even going to go out as far as say that pretty much almost every European car, Audi, Volkswagen, has a similar setup to this in the rear, so you can use this video as a guide. There's going to be some subtle differences, but you get the idea pretty much. The basics are all there. So with that said, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe, because it definitely helps the channel grow. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.